Can we pass a function as argument? And can we return a function as a result? We can using higher order function. So higher order functions is one of the concepts that is helps to pass a function as argument and to return a function as result and even to assign a function to a variable. So watch the video till the end so that you can able to understand clearly about higher order functions and how we can pass a function as argument to a function and how we can return a function from another function. So let's get started. So welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. So in our previous videos, while discussing about function aliasing, we have seen how we can assign a function to a variable, right? So in a similar way, we can pass a function as argument to another function and we can return a function from the another function. So why and how that is happening is that functions are considered as first class citizens, which means functions are considered as a data. Unlike any other data that we have, let's say integer, float, and list, tuple, strings, everything is considered as a data, right? So in a similar way, functions are also considered as a data, which results functions can be assigned to a variable, functions can pass as an argument to another function, functions can be returned from another functions. So first we will start our discussion with the functions and how we can pass a function as an argument. So we will understand this clearly with an example. So bear with me. First, I will define some functions so that you can able to understand clearly. So first, what I will be doing is that I wanted to define a function, so which is nothing but a calculate function. So for this calculate function, I will pass a argument which may be add and multiplication, and I will pass two arguments, which is number one and number two. By using this add or multiplication function, which is a function rather than just any other number. So based on the function that it need to be calculated. So for that reason, first I will define add function. So this add function takes a number one and number two here. So in this, what I will be doing is that I will just return the result. So I am just defining return number one. So number one plus number two here. So after that, what I will be doing is that I will mention one more function, which is nothing but multiplication. So here also I will be mentioning number one and number two. So after that, I will return multiplication of number one and number two. So number one and number two. So after that, what I will be defining is that I will define a new function, which is nothing but calculate here. So in this, I will be taking a function. So after that, I will also take number one and number two. So what these functions do, what this function do is that calculate function do is that it will return the result of function. So it will call a function, which is nothing but this function, whatever the function is called when we call this calculate, right? So we will call this function and we will pass number one and number two here. So what is happening here is that we were taking this function. This is need to be a function. We are taking this function and inside of this calculate function, we are calling this function, whatever the function that is being passed. If I execute this, this is got executed. So we have some problem here. We need to mention return. So return here. If I execute this, this is got executed. So now what I will be doing is that I wanted to find the addition of two numbers, let's say. So to do that, we can directly call this add and mention 2 comma 3 and we can able to get the result. But this is not the way that I wanted to do here. I wanted to call this calculate and based on this calculate, I wanted to find the addition and I wanted to find the multiplication. So for that, I will be mentioning calculate and I wanted to pass, let's say 2 comma 3, and if I execute this, we will be getting an error. So because we need to mention one more parameter, which is nothing but function, right? So function, that what I wanted to mention is that add here, and if I execute this, so we are getting the result, which is 5. So what is happening when we call this calculate is that we are passing this function add, right? So this is considered as a function. So when we pass this function add, it will go to this function and this function is getting called. So here this function is replaced with the add and add function is called with number one and number two, which are nothing but 2 and 3. So let's say if I take this calculate same, so calculate And if I mention multiplication, and if I mention 2 comma 3, and if I execute this calculate, so num is missing, so here I need to mention number 1 if I execute this, and if I execute this. So here you can see able to see the result. We are getting 6. The reason is because when we mention this calculate, previously you have seen an error, right? So this will go to this calculate, and this function will replace with multiplication. After that, the execution goes to this multiplication, and finally we are getting the result of this number 1, number 2. So this return will come to here, and from this we are getting the actual return of 6 here. So in this way we are passing the function which is add and multiplication which is mul. So based on these functions, so from this function calculate, these functions will be called. So in this way we can actually pass a function as a argument. So I hope by this explanation you can able to understand how we can pass a function as argument. In this case we are passing add and multiplication functions as arguments for calculate function. So let us go ahead and discuss one more important concept, which is nothing but how we can return a function. So for that, what I will be doing is that I will take a function, and the function will contain another function which you can consider as nested function, and I will return the nesting function. So how I wanted to define is that, so I wanted to create a function to multiply. So create multiply. So multiply. So after that, what I wanted to do is that I will take two variables here. So I will take one element which is nothing but factor here. So I wanted to multiply a number with a factor. So after that, inside of this function, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to mention one more function which is nothing but multiply. So previously it is create multiply. So here I will just mention multiply. So after that, inside of this, I will take one more number here. So I'm just mentioning as number. So in outer function create multiply, I'm taking one factor, and inside of this multiply, I'm taking one number. So now what I will be doing is that inside of this particular function, I will just return multiplication of factor and this number here. So multiplication of factor and number. So after that, inside of this multiply function, we are returning factor and number multiplication. So after that, inside of this outer function, which is nothing but create multiply, I will just return this multiply. So I'm not calling this multiply, rather I am returning the multiply as a whole. So I'm not mentioning any braces, and because of that reason, we are directly returning this multiply. So if I execute this, so this is got executed. So now what I can do is that I will mention so double here. So I'm just mentioning as a double, and I will call this create multiply. So I will call this create multiply, and I will pass 2 here. And if I execute this, this is got executed. So I will create one more function, one more, let's say triple here. So inside of this triple, I will call the same function, but I will pass 3 here. So previously I have passed 2, now I have passed 3 here. So how this is happening is that we are not getting any result. So here when we call this create multiply, it will go to this create multiply with this whatever the number that we are passing. After that, it will check this, and after this is not called, right? So after that, we are just returning this inner function. So that inner function will be stored in this double. So inner function will be stored in this triple. So now if I execute this, this is also got executed. So now if you wanted to call this multiply, so this inner function multiply, what we can do is that we can call this by using this double and triple. So if I mention double, and if I pass some value, let's say 2 here, and if I execute this, we are getting 4. The reason is because this double is having the name of multiply. So when we call this create multiply, it was returning this multiply function that is stored in this double. So after that, when we call this double, which is nothing but multiply, the multiplication happening with the previous 2, which is nothing but this 2, which is nothing but factor, when we call this create multiply. After, when we call this double, which is nothing but number, this is got a doubling, which results as 4 here. If I call this double by passing another value, let's say if I pass by 10, if I execute this, uh, DOUBLE, if I execute this, we can able to see we are getting 20. So this 10, which is nothing but a number here, and this 2, which is nothing but factor here. That is the reason when we call double with 10, we are getting 20. Because previously when we mentioned this create multiply, we passed 2 as a factor. Now we are passing the number as 10. So as a result, 2 into 10, which results 20. So we have defined one more function, which is nothing but triple, right? So we are calling this create multiply by using 3, and we have named that as triple, right? So let us understand this triple as well. So if I mention triple by passing 2 here, so if I execute this, so we are getting 6. The reason is because when we call this create multiply by 3, so we are passing factor here. So this factor is stored in this factor, and when we call this triple by 2, this will be replaced with 2, this number replaced with 2, and we are getting the factor of 3 into 2, which is nothing but 6 here. So in this way, we can actually return a function as a result. So this is also considered as a function closure. So how you can consider is that here, when you pass this factor, but still when you call this factor here, and after that, after some time, when you call this double, still you can able to access this factor, right? So even though you are not passing a factor here, which is nothing but this factor, but still you can able to get this factor from the create multiply, right? Which is nothing but when you are calling this create multiply, that data, that 2 remains exactly fixed for this factor, right? So this is also considered as closure, which means remembering of the previous state of this outer function. So I hope you can able to understand how we can call a function by passing another function as an argument, and how we can return a function as a result, and we can reuse the resulted function in future whenever we wanted. So we have seen that with this double and triple examples, right? So I hope you can able to understand these two concepts. And if you found this video interesting, hit the like button and comment whatever you think about this video in the comment section. And in the next video, we will discuss about function decorator, which is also one of the important concepts in the nested functions. So to stay updated with my latest videos, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications to all, so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.